Welcome to Stop My Crisis. I'm your host, Vivian Gaspar, and if you are the parent of a high school student or perhaps even middle school, you're kind of excited but maybe a little scared knowing that college is soon to be around the corner, even if that's a few years away, or if they're a high schooler who's in junior or senior year, it's coming upon you faster than you want to think about, especially when you're thinking about the cost of the student loans that they have to worry about. And I need to think about this as well. I'm in that same boat. However, I know that as a parent, we really want to help our children by giving them roots, but college is now giving them wings. But the cost of student loan debt is absolutely scary for most parents. 42 million Americans owe $1.3 trillion of student loan debt. 29% of student loans is actually owed by people 55 to 64 years old, and 13% of that debt is owed by people 65 to 74 years old. So let's think about this logically. I brought here to our studios today Nancy Cavey. Nancy is here to educate us what every parent and cosigner needs to know about student loans before they sign those forms. Thank you, Nancy, for coming and helping us prevent a crisis in our families.
Thank you.
Nancy, tell us, what is it someone needs to know about a Parent Plus loan? And if they haven't started thinking about parenting loans and what that means, can you please start from scratch for us?
All right, well, let's start from scratch in terms of your child can get federal student loans, but you have the ability to get a federal student loan. It's called a Parent Plus loan. And that Parent Plus loan pays the difference between the money that your college is going to be giving your child and what the real cost is. So you as the parent can take out a loan. It's called a Parent Plus loan. It's based on your credit worthiness. The bad news about a Parent Plus loan is that you, not your child, is responsible for the loan. The bad news is that as soon as that money is dispersed, you have to start paying back on the student loan. The bad news is...
Wait a second, you're just saying all these bad news. What's the good news?
Well...
Okay, so what's the rest of the bad news?
Well, the rest of the bad news is that if you have a problem paying that loan back, ultimately there are some ways that you can get some help. There's deferment, there's forbearance, but there's more bad news. And the bad news is that the kind of repayment plan that you as the parent are in is primarily an income-based program, which is pretty limited. It's an ICR program, or basically a time-based program. So it's like buying a house. You have a fixed payment. The sort of the good news, if you will, is that you do have the protections of the federal student loan program. And that's to be contrasted with a private student loan.
So I understand, though, student loan debt, unfortunately, especially when it's given by the federal government, if you wanted to do bankruptcy, that can't not be included. Is that correct?
The general answer to that is yes, but there are some exceptions, as you may know, and that is a very limited exception. And the reality is that you basically have to show you've exhausted your efforts to pay the loan back, that the problem would last the length of the loan, and more importantly, that there's a really good reason why you couldn't pay the loan back. And normally that's your disability. It's called the Bruner test. The bottom line is it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to discharge federal student loans and private student loans in bankruptcy.
What is the difference between a private student loan or a federal student loan? Is there a dollar difference or perhaps an interest rate difference?
Great question. And the answer is yes. Chase, for example.
The answer is yes to both.
For example, Chase offers private student loans. It is, again, credit-based. It's easy to get the loan. The interest rates are better than a federal student loan. The huge problem, however, is you're legally responsible if your child defaults. You, as the cosigner, stand in the shoes of your child. And the bad news also is that if you stop making the payment for any reason, you're automatically in default, unlike in the Parent Plus student loan situation. You can be sued. A judgment can be gotten against you. Your wages can be garnished. Your income tax refund can't be seized in a private student loan situation as it can in the Parent Plus loan, but your assets can be seized, and the judgment can chase you the rest of your life. So it's a bad situation.
If you have issues with repaying your student loan for your child, could it potentially become a lien on your home?
Yes.
That's a short answer, apparently. Yes.
In a private student loan situation, yes. In a federal student loan, the answer is no. In a federal student loan with a Parent Plus, they can garnish your wages, seize your income tax refund, and they can take your Social Security disability benefits and retirement benefits and leave you only $750 per month in benefits.
Wow.
Okay?
That sounds really scary.
It is scary.
Tell me really quickly, first of all, I appreciate that you took the time to help people by writing a book, because I didn't realize how complex this is. So my question that I have burning within me is really, how, as an attorney, is there something that we as parents should do? Is there a benefit for us to hire an attorney in regards to understanding student loans better before we apply?
I think that would be a wise step, because you need to understand the federal student loans that your child is eligible for, loans you may be eligible for, and the private student loan situations. Vivian, I've seen families destroyed over co-signed private student loans where grandma, mom and dad, and the student co-signs, and the child stops paying it. And the banks will look to mom, dad, and grandma and grandpa. They're the deep pockets. I wouldn't want a family to be putting themselves in that jeopardy by unwittingly signing up for a private student loan, not knowing the consequences, and putting themselves in that situation if they just sign for a Parent Plus loan.
And if you cannot include it in a bankruptcy, it unfortunately can, I see, lead to deeper problems such as a foreclosure if you cannot get away from making those payments.
It's a horrible situation.
So really quick, is there anything we should know that's a quick takeaway? Because this is such an important subject, but unfortunately we're running out of time.
Well, I have to say, as dear Abby said, if you're asked by your child, the answer is no, I won't take out a Parent Plus loan, and no, I won't co-sign. If you choose, however, to do that, remember, on a Parent Plus loan, you're going to make the payment, and you're going to make the payment for the life of the loan. So can you afford to make that payment now, 5 years now, 10 years now when you want to retire? Think about yourself first.
Well, I really think that what you have to say, I never even realized that it's a wise move to consult a knowledgeable attorney on. I just didn't know that's what's in the realm of an attorney could be helping with. So thank you for enlightening myself and our viewing audience. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
As a foreclosure and remediation expert, I've seen families put to the rim of bankruptcy, but they couldn't file bankruptcy because of the large dollar amounts of monthly student loan payments that they had to make for their child. These are not small dollars. I've seen payments from parents upwards between $500 to over $2,000 a month. And when people lose their jobs and they had to make those payments because there was no way around it, that has literally led to people losing their homes. It is wise to seek counsel of an attorney for a small fee in comparison to potentially maybe losing your home, unfortunately, down the line, and looking into the future. What is the best way to prevent a tragedy like that? Let's stop those crises before they become reality. Welcome back to Stop My Crisis. I'm your host, Vivian Gaspar, and I'm here today to talk about a problem that affects nearly everyone I've ever encountered in my professional life: student loan debt. Unfortunately, $1 trillion of student loan debt are active right now, and of which $77.4 billion of student loan debt are in default right now. Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program comes online October 2017. And that program will help teachers, firefighters, police officers, and people who work for nonprofits get their student loans forgiven. It's unbelievable. In New Jersey alone, there are over 114,584 full-time teachers, over 50,000 law enforcement officers, and 300,000 governmental employees, again, in New Jersey alone. So here with me today, I have an expert on this very topic, Nancy Cavey. Nancy, thank you so much for explaining this amazing forgiveness program. I still can't believe it's actually coming online.
Well, I think that your audience is going to be enthused about what we're going to be talking about today.
I'm enthused. I still can't believe it. I've seen so many people suffering when now they no longer will have to. Please explain it, because I'm very excited. How does someone know if this is a program they could take advantage of?
Well, let's talk about the things you have to prove to be eligible for the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. The first thing, Vivian, is that you have to work for the right kind of employer. Well, what's that? It's a public service type employment, which means if you work for the local government here in Princeton, if you work for the county, the state, for federal government, that kind of employment qualifies. If you work for a nonprofit, that employment qualifies. So you could be the dog catcher, the accountant, the mayor of Princeton, and you would be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. The second element that I think your audience is going to be interested in is making sure that they understand that they have to be in the right kind of loan program. By that I mean when you pay back your student loans, you're in a time-based repayment plan or you're in a income-based repayment plan. You have to be in the right income-based repayment plan to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness.
I need to ask a question when you mention nonprofits.
Okay.
What are the regulations around there? I mean, there's so many people who have not-for-profits that are very, very small, and then you have them so large, such as the American Red Cross. What size? Does it make a difference, or as long as they're a registered 501(c)(3)?
They have to be a registered 501(c)(3). But what's important here is that it's actually the type of work that they're doing. So if they're a religious institution and they're trying to convert someone, or if they're a political institution, that isn't going to count.
Ah, those are the two caveats.
Yes, right.
So how does this work? You say it's coming online in a sheer 10 months from now.
Correct.
Is that the beginning or end of October? Somebody who's so anxious for this to start, they might want to know that 30-day difference.
October 1st. But one of the other
9 months from now.
One of the other
or less.
important elements, though, Vivian, is that the person has to be current. They can't be in default. And they have to make their payments on time, and you have to make 10 years worth of current on-time payments. Now, you haven't asked me a question that you should ask me.
I need to know.
Okay, I'll tell you.
I want to know, what is it? I haven't asked you yet.
Yes.
I love when my guests are mind readers.
All right. A lot of your members of the audience are teachers.
Yes, a lot of our New Jersey residents are teachers.
All right.
We have a fantastic school system here.
So I get questions all the time. What happens if I'm only working a 10-month contract? Well, that's okay. What happens if I stop working to raise a family and I go back as a school teacher? Do I lose the years that I've paid in? And the answer is no. It's not 10 years consecutive. It's 10 years cumulative. So what I suggest folks do is you can go to www.edu.gov, Department of Education site, and download a form, and you start filling it out now, because you want to send it in and have the government say that your employment qualifies for this program, so that you know how many years you've got in this program and how many years you've got left.
They could check that now.
Yes.
Even when we're many months out ahead of it, they can see if they qualify now.
Yes, and that's what I tell all of my clients to do, because the form to actually apply for forgiveness hasn't been created yet.
Is there a cap of how much money they're willing to forgive per person?
No.
There's no cap. You can have $100,000 and still be eligible to have all the amount forgiven?
So let's say you have $300,000 in loans, you've been making payments for 10 years, and you have $200,000 left. Guess what? Guess what gets forgiven?
The balance?
The $200,000. And you want to know what's even better?
What?
there's no tax liability for that forgiven money.
That's what I was going to ask you next. So many times when you have debt and it's forgiven or written off, you might receive the 1099 and have a tax liability. So that's fantastic that you bring that up.
No tax liability.
So is this something you might need an attorney for, or you could just go through the government? Because I know you have this fantastic new book out. Can you mention it to us, please? This might help people.
Certainly. I have written a book, Student Loans, What They Didn't Tell You. And do you need a lawyer? No, you don't need a lawyer to do this. But I think it's wise to have someone to consult with, because you have to have the right kind of loan. And there are all sorts of federal student loans that only go into certain income-based repayment plans. You see those ads for consolidation?
Yes.
Those can mess up your ability to get into the public service loan forgiveness, because you may be consolidating into the wrong kind of loan. So I think people should consult with someone who has an expertise in student loans, not just some radio ad or TV ad.
Well, here is probably one of the best reasons. If someone has $50,000, $100,000 or more of outstanding debt, I would think it makes sense to spend a little bit of money to make sure the rest of that amount of money is forgiven. And we're talking very large numbers for a lot of the people I know.
Absolutely.
Have encountered or who are our viewers. This is amazing public service that you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate you taking the time to come to our studios and talk about this, because I don't think that many people were aware of this. I have just one more question. Is there a way to know, for example, how long this will be available for? You said it starts October 2017, but is there a finite amount of time that someone has to get in on it, so to speak?
Well, based on the change in our administration, I can't answer that question. I don't know, and my fellow colleagues don't know what the Trump administration or the Department of Education is going to do with the public service loan forgiveness. So I think we'll have to just wait to see what the future holds.
Well, hopefully, if people take advantage of it quickly, they don't wait, and sometimes waiting is the devil. If you wait, you lose.
Correct. So if you've been working for a qualified employer for 10 years, making those payments on time, you should check to make sure your employment qualifies, and on October 1st, that application should be going in with the wind.
One last question, then we have to wrap up. What if you've had multiple employers who still might be qualified in that 10-year period?
That's what the point of this form is to have the government look at your employment history and say, this one counts, that one doesn't count. So you know how many payments you've made and how many payments you have to make with the right employer.
That's really helpful. And what lesson learned is, get the help of a professional. Little investment might yield some amazing amounts of money forgiven and a lot less debt. And guess what? Money you don't have to pay will then help you get faster on your way to a better retirement, or just a lot more cash flow in your month. So you have more money left over at the end of your month. And that helps to alleviate any crisis. Welcome to Stop My Crisis. I'm your host, Vivian Gaspar. And crisis is not just financial. However, many emotional types of crisis ends up yielding financial crisis as well. And if you're a parent, you understand that what you do with your children now shapes them for what type of adults they'll be in the future. And don't you want your children to become independent and really not need you any longer when they're adults? That has to start now while they're young. And that way it won't lead to future crises for you and them. So what I have right now is a really big treat. I have a fantastic guest here. Alena Chapman is actually a best-selling author, a mentor, and a speaker. And she understands how difficult it can be to be a single parent. Although she's helped thousands of adults break out of self-imposed prisons, she has won rave reviews for her advice and blogging on parenting as a single parent herself. And she is talking with us today on the secret having children grow with self-worth and confidence, not just for now, but completely into the future as adults for them.
Hello, Vivian. Angelina Jolie, we all know her. She has been saying, and still says, I struggle with low self-esteem every day.
Someone that wildly successful, and she's a humanitarian, doesn't she work with the UN? How can
She
someone
does.
who does so much for so many others, and obviously she loves being a mother, she, I believe, she has 6 children.
I think 6 or
How
8
can she
somewhere.
struggle?
Yeah.
Give
or take.
It's not 1 or 2. So if she has struggled with self-esteem, would she subconsciously impose that upon her children?
Yes.
Or anyone, not picking
Yes.
on Angelina Jolie, but it's a concern.
It is.
So if you
It
demonstrate lower self-worth or esteem in yourself, could you naturally be passing that on to your children simply
Yes.
because they imitate you?
You do. And we tend to, whatever's going on inside of us, or those old beliefs that we were raised with that maybe gave us the low self-esteem, without even knowing it, we pass it on to our children.
And then it just perpetuates a cycle. There's so many things that are cycles, and this is just another one of them. Abuse could be a cycle, but perpetuating low self-worth and low self-esteem is also another cycle.
It
and
is.
we want to break
You
these
wanna
types of
break it.
damaging cycles that you
Yes.
pass on.
Yes.
So
totally.
how, as we as parents would know if we're suffering with low self-esteem so we don't have our children mirroring that behavior?
Yes.
How do we recognize that in ourselves?
First of all, when you're trying something new, or you're just trying to stretch outside that normal box that you live in, and all of a sudden you hear the voices, listen to them. And I'm not talking, I'm talking about the voices that say, you must be crazy. You can't do that.
Don't listen to those voices, right?
No, stop and listen to them for a minute and say, wait a minute, where did that come from? And just say, wait, is that true or not? And am I living my life by those voices? That's the next thing, because sometimes we do. We will stop dead in our tracks when we hear those voices.
Shouldn't you fight to press upon your brain and think consciously to have a positive thought or 3 to overcompensate for that negative little voice in your head?
Yes, you take that, you listen to it and you think, wait a minute, that's not true. And there's affirmations too that you can say over and over that help to bring it into the subconscious mind and actually combat that old belief that you hear, that thing you were learning when you were little, that you weren't worth it, or you are crazy for trying something new. You can start to squish those down by building up the type of esteem you want to have.
Even if it's your parents or friends doing it to you now, this
Yes.
doesn't stop, I think. For example,
No.
if you want to do something that's outside of the norm as a career,
Yes.
something a little bit more bold and untraditional.
Yes.
And obviously, when you want to do a career of any kind, you need to invest in yourself, get some coaching,
Exactly.
get some mentoring, and of course, things that you do. But education of any kind, it
Right.
costs money. It's an investment in yourself.
It is.
So when your loved ones or friends tell you, are you insane for investing money to do that? So then I think when you may judge yourself by others' impression of you, what do you do when that happens? But you know it's your passion. You know you want to do this.
You have to believe that what we think is our passion, what we have as our talent, and what we really makes our heart sing is the right thing to do. When I started writing my book, for instance, I went running home. I had decided to write this book. I had already been doing the notes, okay? But now I was putting it in book form. And I went home and I called somebody who was very near and dear to my heart. And I said, I'm going to write a book. And the first word that I heard was, are you crazy? Have you ever written a book before?
Wait, are you crazy? That's 3 words.
Yeah,
you heard that.
I know.
And trust me, I've been a non-traditionalist all my life. So I understand. I actually started college at 14. Who does that?
Yeah, I know.
So,
I know.
there's just all kinds of things.
It took
so I
me
understand
20
that.
minutes, 20 minutes to talk him down.
You shouldn't be in that position. So there's one of
Nobody
the things
should
you
be.
could do, since we have to absorb information that others in our lives put upon us. They're giving us perhaps their own insecurities.
That's what it is.
Maybe they're jealous to a degree. Maybe that person wishes they had the audacity and the bravery to write their own book.
Subconsciously, this was a person, and it always is. It's people who are scared of stretching, past what they call their world. And I'm daring to go past that, which is what we want our children to be able to do. But yet there's so many people who are scared to that they try to hold you back. So you have to believe in yourself. And if you tell them, you have to stay strong and say, you know what, and maybe it's not right for them. And they can't see themselves doing it, but I can see myself doing it.
That's what you have to remember.
You
Right.
have to.
I
You
understand.
believe in yourself, and you will transfer that onto your kids.
So give me real quick 3 ways that you can foster self-esteem, good, positive self-esteem in your children.
One way is, first of all, allow your children to be able to defend themselves.
How do you mean defend yourselves? Emotionally or physically?
No. When you are going to cast a punishment, for instance, maybe they did something, allow them to bring their case to you.
Oh.
And
Don't be so maybe
Black
universally
and white.
totalitarian in your commands.
No, maybe they didn't get an A on their test. Instead of just saying, okay, that's horrible, why didn't you get an A? Da, 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 da. Instead of stop and say, okay, why didn't you get that A? And really listen. Don't listen critically, just listen. And if they're presenting a good case, then say, okay, I understand, let's fix that, and stop it there.
Great. What's another one?
And
I want to
another
get
one-
more of
okay,
this.
Okay, I know you do. And then another thing is, don't allow them to talk down about themselves. Say,
Excellent.
wait, what do you mean you're fat? You're not
No.
fat, you know? And girls going into high school, that's the hardest time. So reassure them about their bodies, reassure them about who they are.
And maybe as their mothers, we're women, we should be
Yes.
careful of our language about ourselves so they
Yes.
don't hear that.
Totally.
Catch myself,
Well,
never
wait,
say I'm fat in
wait.
front of my daughter, or at least never think it at last at all. And so she doesn't start to mirror that unknowingly. Or
But it would be
subconsciously.
even better if we changed how we thought about ourselves, because it shows. And then we don't have to catch ourselves, because we're really stopping that thinking we're fat, and it helps them. So it starts with
Wow.
us. It always starts with
What's
us.
the third one?
And then a third one is to encourage them. Encourage them to try things new. Encourage them to go out for something that they might say, oh, I don't know if I can do that. Give it a shot.
Fantastic. I know that we run out of time, but as a parent, if you don't feel good about yourself, and how can we give something to children if we don't have ourselves? And you were just mentioning that before.
Yes.
So I know that's one aspect, but I think that it's not stopping as a teenager or young adult or tween or college age. Somebody at any age can have self-worth and self-esteem issues, and it could be stopping our own progress. And let's face it, I've read studies where if you have low self-worth, maybe it hinders your ability to make an income, which affects your ability to care for your family. So can you give one quick tip that will help all people of any age group to increase their self-worth going forward?
If you truly want to feel good about where you're going in your life, and maybe you're trying to climb the corporate ladder,
Yes.
you have to do the self-study. I hate to tell you, but you have to do the self-study. You have to do the affirmations that will build the strong self-esteem and get rid of the low self-esteem. But it takes work. And I'd love to give you a magic pill and say, here it is, but it takes time.
The most important job you can have as a parent, once you become a parent, is to really truly help your child prepare to be a successful and productive and independent adult. And you cannot help them foster that if they don't have a very strong feeling of self-worth and self-esteem for themselves going forward, regardless of where they are right now. I don't care if they're 5, 3, or 23. Help them foster it wherever they are right now.